Hey everyone! Ready for a deep dive into spiritual awakening? We're looking at an episode transcript from the Ancient Wisdom YouTube channel today. And get this, they weave in stories and quotes from some heavy hitters, like Einstein, Edison.
Oh yeah, Carl Jung. Rumi even.
Oh, and of course you can't talk about awakening without the Buddha.
Right. But what struck me about Ancient Wisdom's approach is they don't sugarcoat it. They get real about, the not-so-fun parts of awakening, too.
Okay, so let's break it down. They start by tackling these common misconceptions. Like, a lot of people see awakening as this, endpoint. You reach enlightenment, boom, you're done.
Yeah, like, I've arrived.
Exactly. But the channel uses this awesome mountain climbing analogy. You finally hit the summit, feeling on top of the world, and then you realize, whoa, there are even higher peaks out there.
It's a journey, not a destination, right? And that actually reminds me of this Carl Jung quote from the transcript. It says, "There is no coming to consciousness without pain."
Ooh, that's deep.
Yeah. And it kind of made me think of Thomas Edison, how he talked about finding 10,000 ways that didn't work before he figured out the light bulb.
So awakening is more about embracing those stumbles, those setbacks.
Exactly. It's all part of the process.
So instead of that finish line mentality, what if we saw it as more of an expedition, a lifelong one at that?
I like that. It's less about reaching some perfect state and more about constantly evolving, pushing yourself further.
And uncovering those hidden depths within yourself, right?
Exactly. And speaking of pushing further, that leads right into another myth Ancient Wisdom tackles. The whole awakening equals eternal happiness thing.
Oh, yeah, that's a big one.
Huge. Because in reality, the source actually says awakening might make you more aware of pain and discomfort. Because now you're not trying to avoid those feelings.
It's like facing them head on.
Exactly. Which reminds me of that Rumi quote, "The wound is the place where the light enters you." Right. Awakening doesn't magically erase those challenges. It helps you see them, understand them, and then ultimately, work through them.
It's like you're not bypassing the hard stuff. You're leaning in.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Think about someone like Van Gogh, right? His incredible art, it often came from his struggles.
So awakening doesn't promise constant bliss, but it can help you find meaning in those tougher moments. Maybe even beauty, right?
Exactly. Like, would you be willing to face some discomfort, those shadows within yourself, if it meant discovering a deeper sense of peace and authenticity?
That's a powerful question to consider for sure. Okay, so we've tackled the endpoint myth and the eternal happiness myth. What's next?
Well, Ancient Wisdom then goes after this idea that only certain people can awaken, like it's this exclusive club or something.
Oh yeah, I've heard that one too.
But they make it clear this potential is in everyone. It's not about being inherently special or better than others.
It's about being willing to look at yourself, flaws and all, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
That willingness to really see yourself.
It's interesting they used Mother Teresa as an example. They pointed out she wasn't born a saint. Her awakening came from confronting her own doubts and fears.
Right. It's not about being superhuman. It's about honesty, self-awareness, and the courage to face those parts of yourself that, maybe you don't love.
So it's not about achieving some superhuman state. It's about being real with yourself. What do you think holds people back from that journey, that self-discovery?
I think it's that feeling of not being ready, not being worthy. But the truth is, awakening is about being true to yourself, not trying to live up to some external standard.
It's about your own journey, right? Okay, so we've debunked 3 misconceptions so far. What's the final one? Ancient Wisdom tackles.
This one's a biggie. The idea that awakening magically solves all your problems.
Oh yeah, like life suddenly becomes a breeze.
Exactly. And of course, we know that's not realistic. What the transcript actually says is that awakening changes your perception of problems, not their actual existence.
So life's still going to throw curveballs, but an awakened person doesn't see them as the end of the world.
Exactly. They see them as chances to learn and grow.
It's all about perspective.
Right. There's a great Viktor Frankl quote in the source material. He says, "When we can no longer change a situation, we are challenged to change ourselves."
Ooh, I like that.
So the challenge isn't necessarily to eliminate problems, but to evolve in how we deal with them.
Like instead of seeing them as these immovable roadblocks, maybe they become more like stepping stones.
Exactly. They become part of the journey.
That reminds me of Helen Keller. She didn't let her circumstances limit her. She found strength and inspiration in them.
Such a powerful story.
Yeah.
It shows us that awakening isn't about escaping hardship. It's about finding the strength and resilience to face those ups and downs with a new perspective.
Are we ready to stop running from our challenges and start seeing them as part of our path to self-discovery?
That's the question, isn't it?
Okay, now here's where things get really interesting. Ancient wisdom doesn't shy away from a crucial part of awakening, but one that's often overlooked: facing your inner darkness.
The shadow.
Yes. And they use this striking image, a mirror reflecting not just your face, but also your deepest fears and insecurities.
Yeah.
Right. It's like all that stuff we try to keep hidden.
This is where Carl Jung's concept of the shadow comes in. And the source material says that the shadow isn't inherently evil.
It's just the parts of ourselves we don't want to acknowledge.
Exactly. Like we try to shove them down, pretend they don't exist.
But they're still there, lurking beneath the surface.
Exactly. And they affect us, whether we're aware of them or not.
It's like carrying this heavy backpack full of stones, each one representing some suppressed emotion, some painful memory. We're trying to avoid dealing with them, but
They don't just disappear.
right. They linger and influence our thoughts, our feelings, our actions. So confronting the shadow,
It's about bringing those hidden parts into the light
understanding them, accepting them,
and ultimately integrating them into who we are.
which I imagine can be pretty uncomfortable.
Definitely not always easy, but it's a vital part of the journey.
So the question is, are you willing to face your own shadow? To look into that metaphorical mirror and see all of who you are?
Even the parts you might not like.
That's a powerful question to ponder, isn't it?
That mirror image, it really sticks with you, huh? And it actually leads perfectly into how ancient wisdom talks about the dark night of the soul, like another step in facing that inner darkness. They even bring up the Buddha's journey. You know, how even he went through tons of suffering and doubt before reaching enlightenment.
Yeah, it's interesting. The transcript doesn't frame this dark night as some kind of failure. It's not a punishment. It's more like a necessary part of the process, almost like, an initiation or something.
Exactly. It's about shedding old beliefs, facing those fears, stripping away anything that isn't truly you. And ancient wisdom specifically mentions 3 feelings that come up a lot during this phase, like a sense of loss, feeling super alone, and just not knowing what's next,
Yeah.
Ambiguity.
Sounds pretty intense. But the point is, this dark night isn't the end, right? It's a transformation. Like, just as the Buddha came out of that darkness to reach enlightenment, we can too. We can find clarity, a sense of freedom after our own struggles.
For sure. Now, switching gears a bit, let's get into how ancient wisdom brings all this into everyday life, with the idea of mindful living.
Being present
Yeah.
in the moment.
Yeah. Not getting caught up in the past or worrying about the future.
Oh, they had some great examples, like eating a meal but not even tasting the food.
Oh, yeah. Or being in a conversation, but your mind is totally somewhere else.
Totally. We've all been there. It's not like we want to be distracted. It's just our minds are always pulling us away from now.
Right. But here's the thing. Ancient wisdom says mindfulness, it's not some mystical state only for, like, monks or gurus. It's something we all have.
It's like those moments when you're completely absorbed in something, watching a sunset, listening to your favorite music, or even just holding someone's hand, feeling that warmth.
Those are glimpses of being truly present. And they remind us what it feels like to be truly alive,
Yeah. The challenge then is, how do we make that presence more consistent?
Well, ancient wisdom says we don't need to upend our entire lives. It's more about adding small, intentional practices to our day.
What kind of practices?
Well, they start with the classic, mindfulness meditation. And the good news is you don't need any fancy equipment or anything.
No silent retreats required.
Nope. It's as simple as finding a comfortable spot, focusing on your breath. And whenever your mind wanders, you gently bring it back.
Sounds simple enough, but isn't it hard to quiet your mind like that?
It can be.
Yeah.
But the thing is, don't beat yourself up when your mind wanders. Just notice it, and gently redirect your attention back to your breath. Ancient wisdom says even just a few minutes a day can help with concentration, managing your emotions, stress, all that.
It's like that John Kabat-Zinn quote, "You can't stop the waves, but you can learn to surf."
Exactly. You learn to ride those waves of thoughts and feelings without getting, totally wiped out. And the beauty is you can practice it anywhere, anytime. The key is just starting small, being consistent. You'll start to see the benefits.
But ancient wisdom also says mindfulness isn't just about meditation. It's about bringing that same awareness to everyday things.
Right. They talk about simple stuff like paying attention when you eat, really savoring each bite instead of just, shoveling food in.
Mindful eating, I've heard of that.
Yeah. It's about noticing the flavors, textures, the aromas, turning an ordinary meal into something more,
They also mentioned doing a body scan. bringing your attention to different parts of your body, just noticing whatever sensations are there. No judgment.
Yeah, it's like taking inventory of your physical self, becoming aware of any tension or discomfort, or even areas that feel relaxed.
So you can do this anywhere, really. Lying in bed, sitting at your desk, even waiting in line at the store.
Right. The idea is to make mindfulness part of your daily life. Brushing your teeth, walking the dog, doing the dishes, whatever you're doing, bring that awareness to it.
So it's not about adding more to our to-do list. It's about changing how we do the things we're already doing.
Exactly. Of course, ancient wisdom also gets real about the fact that, well, being mindful isn't always easy, especially when tough emotions come up or difficult situations.
It's tempting to just shut down, avoid those feelings.
Totally. But they say those challenging emotions, they can actually teach us a lot.
They're like invitations to look deeper.
Yeah. To understand ourselves more and ultimately to heal.
So instead of running away from those hard feelings, we can try to approach them with a sense of curiosity.
Exactly. A willingness to learn. And remember, mindfulness isn't about being perfect. It's about progress. Some days will be easier than others. That's just how it is. The key is to notice when your mind wanders. And without judging yourself, gently guide it back.
Back to the present. Now, ancient wisdom brings up something really interesting. The role of relationships in our awakening journey.
Oh yeah, this is a good one. They say relationships act like mirrors, reflecting who we truly are.
Deep.
Think about it. The people we're close to, they trigger such strong emotions in us, both good and bad. And those reactions, they often tell us something important about ourselves.
So if someone's really pushing your buttons, it's worth asking yourself, what's this reflecting back to me?
Is there something within myself that I'm avoiding?
Right. It's not about blaming the other person for how we feel. It's about taking responsibility for our own reactions and using those interactions to learn and grow.
Exactly. But ancient wisdom also says that the people who love and support us, they reflect our inner light too.
Like their kindness, their compassion reminds us of our own capacity for love.
Exactly. It's a beautiful way to think about relationships, isn't it? They're not just about hanging out. They're opportunities for real growth, spiritual growth even.
But the source material also acknowledges that as we change, as we awaken, some relationships might not survive.
Yeah, that's true. Not everyone will be able to, stay on the same path with us.
It's not a judgment or a failure. It's just people evolve at different paces.
Exactly. We're all on our own unique journeys.
So how does ancient wisdom suggest we navigate those changes in relationships?
They emphasize communication, honesty, empathy, listening without judgment, being compassionate. It's about honoring both your growth and the journeys of the people around you.
Now, speaking of growth, ancient wisdom says there are two qualities that are essential for true enlightenment: humility and service.
They use the Buddha as a prime example. He didn't achieve enlightenment by being isolated. It was his compassion for others that led him there.
It's not about seeing ourselves as better than others.
It's about recognizing that we're all connected and we all have something unique to offer.
That brings us to humility. They say it's not about putting yourself down or denying your accomplishments. It's more about recognizing that true worth comes from contributing to something bigger than yourself.
And service is a perfect way to put that into practice. It's about giving back, helping others, making a difference without expecting anything in return.
And it doesn't have to be some grand gesture, right?
Right. Ancient wisdom says even small acts of kindness can have a huge impact.
Like a ripple effect.
Exactly. They share a quote from Gandhi that really sums it up. The best way to find yourself is to lose yourself in the service of others.
Powerful.
It's about recognizing that real fulfillment comes from connection, contribution, and love.
Okay, but now ancient wisdom throws a bit of a curveball. They ask, is awakening truly necessary for everyone?
Yeah, it seems counterintuitive, right?
Yeah.
But they suggest that, well, maybe not.
They say lots of people live happy, fulfilling lives without necessarily going on some deep spiritual journey.
And if someone finds joy in their family, their work, their community, who are we to say they're missing out?
It's about respecting different paths, right? Different ways of finding meaning. Awakening isn't a one-size-fits-all kind of thing. The important thing is to live authentically in a way that feels right for you.
Exactly. That's the heart of it, isn't it? Whether you're drawn to this whole awakening thing or you find contentment in simpler ways, what matters is that you're living a life that feels meaningful.
Okay, wow. We've covered so much in this deep dive. We've debunked misconceptions, explored our inner world, talked about mindfulness, service. It's been quite a journey, but we're not quite done yet. Welcome back, everyone. This deep dive into ancient wisdom's take on spiritual awakening has really got me thinking about my own life, like how I approach things.
Yeah, it's definitely been an eye-opener. One thing that really struck me is how they emphasize it. Awakening isn't about reaching this perfect state of bliss. It's more about embracing the whole journey. Ups and downs, the good, the bad, all of it.
Totally. It's like peeling back those layers, facing those uncomfortable truths, and ultimately you come out with a deeper understanding of who you really are. What would you say are some of the big takeaways from our dive so far?
Well, we've talked a lot about mindfulness, right? That's a huge part of it, whether it's through formal meditation or just bringing more awareness to everyday stuff, or even just noticing those little moments of presence throughout the day. It's all about connecting more fully with yourself and with the world around you.
And you made a great point earlier. It's not about being perfect at mindfulness. It's those small, consistent efforts that really add up over time.
Absolutely. And remember how ancient wisdom talked about relationships as mirrors? They reflect back to us all those strengths, weaknesses, hidden patterns, all that.
Yeah, and as we awaken, as we grow, those relationships, they might change or even end, right? It's just part of life. But the key is to approach those changes with compassion for ourselves and for the other person.
For sure. And lastly, ancient wisdom really emphasized humility and service. Those are like the cornerstones of true enlightenment.
It's not about isolating yourself or chasing personal gain. It's about realizing we're all interconnected and using what we have to offer to make a difference.
Exactly.
That idea of contributing to something bigger, it really resonated with me. It's like a reminder that fulfillment comes from connecting, contributing, loving.
It's beautiful, isn't it? But we also have to remember what ancient wisdom said. Awakening, it's not the only path to a good life.
Yeah.
If someone finds joy in simpler things, their family, their work, their community, that's amazing.
It all boils down to living authentically, finding what truly makes you happy. So as we wrap up this deep dive, I'm curious, what really resonated with you? What are you taking away from this exploration?
For me, I think it was that idea of seeing challenges as opportunities for growth. We tend to see problems as these big roadblocks, but what if they're actually stepping stones?
I love that. For me, I think it was that reminder about the power of small actions. We get so overwhelmed with making huge changes, but it's those little things we do every day that can have a big impact in the long run. So what about you? What really stood out to you during this deep dive? What's one small step you can take today to move closer to a more authentic, fulfilling life?
We'd love to hear your thoughts. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into spiritual awakening.